Hey good folks, Ram Avraham here for Tuts Plus, and welcome to the second part of this Atoms simulation tutorial. During the first part of this tutorial, we have created the atom body, the camera rig, and one of the neutrons. In this second and last part of the tutorial, we will complete the neutron creation. We will also create several other neutrons. We'll create the nucleus, and we'll create the final composition we have seen in the preview. Now, our rotating electron is circling around our atom body. And at this point, for instance, we got half of it in front of the body and half of it in the back. And we can see the front and the back very clearly. Even though the body seems to be transparent when facing the camera, what we see behind the body should appear slightly fuzzy. So to create that effect, we will need to cut the particle layers in the middle. And that's the reason I named these front. Let's see how we can cut those in the middle and create back particles and front particles. We'll need to go to visibility. Here we've got 4 attributes: the far vanish, far start fade, near start fade, and near vanish. These numbers represent the number of pixels between the camera and the particles. Let's isolate particle front 1, let's just hide those. And let's start dialing back the far vanish until we start to see the back part disappearing. So yeah, this is around it. So 1300, let's try 1200. 1200 works best for me. And far start fade, we'll set it to around 100. So we get a nice fade out sort of edge going on. We'll repeat that number for all of these. Let's see, visibility, this one will be 1200 and this one will be 100. And if they're visible, we can actually see what's going on. 1200 and 100. This one can remain as it is since it's the particles that shoots out from the tip. So this is the front particles, and now we can duplicate those and we'll place those beneath the body, and let's rename those. So this will be particular back 1. Now let's hide the front ones. We'll start with the first one, let's hide those. We'll set this one back to the original settings, so that was 20,000 and 19,000. And we'll give these the same values we had before. 1200 for the near vanish, 100 for the near start fade. And let's bring back the particular one front. We need a bit more here, so actually let's give it 1300, or rather 1100. Let's actually isolate this one for a second and see at what point we get a nice fading out. And somewhere around here, so let's say 1500. And let's bring this one back. Okay, let's make this one 1200 again. No, let's say 1000. And we'll make this one 1600. So the front and back are now connected together. Let's repeat the same result for these. We don't need this one. At this point, I can blur out the back. So let's add a fast blur. And we don't want to blur it too much. Just a small bit can do the trick here. Let's say even 2. And we'll copy this blur and paste it to these. So that gives us a nice effect. And we can even lower the opacity to say around 50. So as you can see, the back particles are always blurred out and faded out, and the front particles are always sharp and crisp and have full opacity. Okay, So at this point, I can say that the neutron is complete. Now this is just one neutron, and I would like to have at least 5-6 more neutrons circling here. At this point, let's see, I have 13 layers, and if I'll duplicate all of the particular layers, I'll get a huge amount of layers here, and that's not what I'm really after. The solution would be to pre-compose the particular layers. So let's mark particular null and all the particular layers. Control-Shift-C to pre-compose, and we'll call this electron 1. Only thing is, even though we get the same animation, we don't have the camera present in the electron 1 composition, and that's not working well for us, especially when we would want to animate the camera in the main composition, not to mention that the back particles and front particles now don't have a camera to use as a reference. So what we'll need to do is copy the cam rotation, cam position, and the camera itself, Control-C, and we'll go into the electron composition and hit Control-V to paste it. But if we'll create any animation for the cam rotation and cam position, we would need to copy the animation from the main composition and paste it here. And again, too much work for me. So what I'd rather do is drag this window here. I'll hit R on the cam rotation and P for the cam position. Actually, let's drag it here. And in the main comp, I'll again open up the rotation for the cam rotation and position for the cam position. In the electron composition, I'll alt-click on the stopwatch next to the position and pick-whip to the position of the cam position in the main comp. So now they're connected with an expression, and we can do the same for the rotation, X to X, Y to Y, and Z to Z. And now we can actually close the electron. We get the same animation as before. So I want to have, let's say, 6 or 7 electrons. So let's go into compositions, and we'll move this one to precomps, and we can duplicate this one, let's say 7 times. Let's open up all of those. Now all of these electrons have the same animation, so they all move the same way. And to give them some randomness, what I can do is go into particular null, hit U, and I can add to the time expression in the rotations some value to make it a bit more random. So let's say I'll add plus some random number for the X and plus some random number for the Y. I'll do the same for electron 3, let's see, plus some random number for the Y and minus some random number for the Z. I'll do the same for the rest of the electron compositions, and we'll continue on from that point. So now I can add the other electrons from the comps folder to my main comp composition. And as you can see, I've got plenty of electrons going on here. And they all move in random directions since we added those random values to the expression. Now, before we move on to creating the nucleus, I would like to address to the color of the atom. Now, to be perfectly honest, when I created this project, let's go into the body, I created the color with a curves effect, I think. Let's see, let's take out some of the green and some of the blue, increase the red just a bit, and you get a nice gold bronze color for the body. And if we'll go to the electron, let's say electron 1, and if we'll go to particular 1 and we'll go to the particle section, we can set the color to be somewhere around that gold color, which is all very nice. But between the time I created this project and the time I've started recording this tutorial, the good folks at Video Copilot have created and published their new free Vibrance plugin, and I think it would work perfectly for this project, so let's give it a shot. We'll write VC, and there it is, Video Copilot Color Vibrance. Okay, let's isolate, let's say, the electron, and we'll apply VC Color Vibrance for it, and that works just beautifully. But after a more of a golden color, and we get a nice gamma highlights going on here, especially in the tip, since we have quite a bit of particles going on there with an add transfer mode, if you recall. Let's copy this plugin and paste it to all the other layers. I'm adding the plugin to all the layers separately rather than adding the plugin to an adjustment layer, and that's because I want to create underneath the electrons and above the body the nucleus, and I don't want it to be colored. So let's see the result. Next, I would like to create the nucleus. I'll create a new composition, Control N, and we'll call this one nucleus. And again, 1280 by 720, and we'll hit OK. Let's close the other compositions here. So we are left with just the main composition and the nucleus. Now, let's go actually to electron 1. And over here, I would like to copy the camera with the cam position and cam rotation. Control C to copy, and we'll go into the nucleus composition, Control V to paste. And I did that because I do need the 3D camera with the expressions that connects the cam rotation and cam position to the ones in the main comp. Let's create a new solid, Control Y, and we'll make this one 500 by 500. 500 by 500 might be a bit too much. Let's make it 200 by 200. We'll rename this layer to Proton 1. We'll switch the mask tool to ellipse tool and double click on it to create a circle mask for it. And we'll add a ramp effect to it. We'll switch the black and white order here. We'll make the black white and the white black. We'll move the white to middle and the black downwards, and we'll switch from linear ramp to radial ramp. So this will be sort of a white sphere. Let's make it a 3D layer, and now it's responding to the camera. Now, if we'll animate the camera using the rotation, we would see that it's a 2D layer. So we need to make sure that it's always oriented towards the camera. So Control Alt O, and we'll set the auto orient to orient towards camera. So now when the camera rotates, the layer would always face towards it. Now let's duplicate this one, and this will be Proton 2. And let's duplicate it again, and we'll rename it to Neutron 1. Let's see, Neutron 1, we'll set again white to black and black to white. Let's isolate it. And I would like to make it look as if this is a black sphere. So let's add a levels effect here. And we'll bring in the white input and bring back the gamma to somewhere around this, so we get sort of a black sphere. Now let's duplicate the neutron and place it above the proton. Let's start moving those layers. Something of this sort. I would like these layers to rotate in 3D space. For that, I'll create a null, Ctrl Alt Shift Y, and I'll make it a 3D null. We'll place the null straight in the middle of those, and we'll connect all of the 3D layers to the null. and I want to give the null some random movement for the rotations. Alt click on the stopwatch next to the X rotation and we'll write wiggle, open parentheses, 0.3, comma 1000, and close parentheses, and we'll add a semicolon. Now let's copy this expression and paste it to the Y rotation. And I don't want to wiggle so much on the Y, so we'll make it, let's say, 350. And copy this again, and we'll paste it to the Z rotation as well. So now we get this random rotation, which makes these spheres look as if they are 3D. We get that sensation since these 3D layers are always facing the camera. So this is our nucleus. We'll go back to our main composition. I'll drop the nucleus composition into my main comp, just between the electron and the body. And it's way too big, so let's go into the nucleus and we'll scale down the null, let's say to 50. Let's see, and that's more like it. At this point, the atom is complete as far as I'm concerned. But I would like to duplicate it quite a few times and create that scene we have seen in the preview. As you have noticed, this scene is very heavy to render and to preview. So at this point, I would like to pre-render this composition. And I'll render about 16 seconds or 20 seconds, more or less, and then import that render back into my main composition. So here's where we're at now. I've pre-composed all the layers which were in the main comp into a new composition and called it Gold Atom. Into that composition, I have imported the rendered sequence, and to save me some time, I'm using the original rendered sequence that I've used for the preview, and I've soloed it. Now, since in the electron compositions, my cam rotation and cam position have expressions that leads them to the main comp, I have duplicated the camera and the two camera nulls, and I've hidden them so that my expressions won't get messed up. If you did wanted to add any sort of animation, you should have done that before the rendering. Now, let's create a new layer, Ctrl Y. We'll make it comp size, and we'll add particular to it. Since we are going to use particular to duplicate the gold atom rendered sequence. We can shut the eye for the gold atom at this point, and let's rename this to gold atom particles. Let's go first to the emitter, and we'll set it to a very low amount of particles per second. We'll say 2, and we want to emit from a box. And let's set the box size to 1500 on the X, 1500 on the Y, and 5000 on the Z. We get a very large distribution of the particles, and we'll set the velocity to 0, the velocity random to 0, distribution, and from motion all to 0. So we get actually no motion, we only see the birth and death of these particles. Let's close the emitter and open up the particle. We'll set the life to 50, and I'll also set the emission extras in the emitter. I'll set the pre-run to 100, so they are already all born when my composition begins. Now let's see, we'll set the particle type from sphere to sprite. In the texture section, we'll set the layer to gold atom, and it warns me that it's way too big, and that is fine with me. I'll set the size to 200. Now, at the moment, all the particles are looping the same animation, and that's not what we are really after. So what we'll need to do is set the time sampling to start at birth loop, and that way we get a nice randomization. However, it takes a longer time to preview it, so for the time being we'll set it to current frame freeze, and after we'll finish all the attributes we can set it back to started birth and loop. Open up the rotation and we'll set the random rotation to 100, so we'll get a bit more randomness going on here, and we can close the rotation now. We'll set the size random to 100, so we'll get a lot more randomness going on. We'll set the opacity to 75. We'll set the opacity random to 75 as well. And since we have particles being born and dying, we can see them popping in and popping out. To take care of that, we'll go to opacity over life and we'll choose one of those presets, the mountain here. So they are born and dying a bit more gently. Now, I don't want the particles to be static position-wise. So what I'll do is go to Physics, Air, Turbulence Field. And over here, I'll set the effect position to 200. So I get a random movement. We'll set the scale to be smaller, let's say 5. And that's a bit nicer. Let's shorten this composition to, let's say, 10 seconds. Should be fine. And we get a nice slow movement. Now, the array that the particles are in now isn't that attractive, so let's close the physics and go back to the emitter. Play with the random seed until we get a nice array that we like. Let's add a camera. And the reason I want to add a camera to the scene is because I want a depth of field. So I'll create a new camera. Ctrl-Alt-Shift-C to create a new camera. We'll use a 35mm and we'll enable the depth of field. We'll hit OK. And let's hit AA to see all the camera options. I'll set the focus distance to very low, let's say 300. So we get a nice depth of field going on here. Maybe a bit more, 350. That's more like it. And we'll set the aperture to a higher value, let's say around 50. Maybe we can lower this to 25, which is more like it. Next, I would like to add a glow to this particular layer. And let's see. We'll lower the glow threshold to somewhere around here. Okay. And the glow radius, will lower that as well to around 2. Get a nice bright back layers, and we'll lower the intensity to around 0.3, maybe even 0.2. So I don't want extreme glow, but I do want it to be a bit more noticeable. Next, we can add the front gold atom, so we can actually use the one we're using in the particular layer. We can copy the glow from the particular layer and paste it to the gold atom. This array doesn't really work for me, so let's go back to the particular layer, and in the emitter we'll play around with the seed till we find something we like. Next, I would like to add some ambient particles. So I'll duplicate the gold atom particles layer and I'll rename it to ambient particles. First, I'll set the particle from sprite to sphere. Let's isolate it so we can see what's going on here. We'll set its size to 1 and let's go back to the emitter so we can work on it a bit better. Let's set the particles per second to 200 so we get a lot more particles. And we'll need to increase the size of the box here let's say 5,000 on 3,500 and 10,000 for the z-axis. So we get sort of a starry field particles sort of thing. Okay, let's close the emitter and back to the particle. So you know what, I'm pretty happy with the way this looks. And I would like to add a nice background to this composition. I'll add a new solid, Control Y. Black solid will be the background, since at the moment we have transparent background here. And we'll create another new layer, and we'll just sample the orange here, and we'll place it above the black solid, and we'll add an ellipse mask for it. Let's hit MM, and we'll feather it out way out there, something about this sort, and we'll set the expansion to minus around something like this, should be fine. And let's lower its opacity to around 30%. Let's add another adjustment layer, Control Alt Y, and we'll rename this adjustment layer to CC, which stands for color correction. And we'll add a levels effect to it, bring in the white input, make it the whole thing a bit brighter. And we'll add a curves effect to it. And we'll go to the blue and just crank up the blue, which would really add a nice blue tint to the ambient particles and somewhat to the nucleus. And yeah, that's it. All we have to do is go back to our gold atom particles. In the particle section, we'll go to the texture time sampling and we'll set it to start at birth and loop. So we have different animation for all the particles in the background. Now, for the other atoms you have seen in the preview, I just duplicated these compositions. I tweaked the particle layers for the electrons to get different results and colored it just a little bit different. But all in all, that's it. That's the way I created this lovely atom simulation. Well, good folks, that's it for me. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. Once again, my name is Ran Ben Avraham, and I'll see you next time.